r/AskReddit. People of Reddit, what is a surprisingly unknown survival fact that everyone should know? Pack a whistle. There's no chance your voice will hold out yelling at the top of your lungs, and whistles carry long distances. Especially handy if you've injured yourself and need to rely on others finding you. SOS in Morse code is. So 3 short blasts, 3 longer ones, 3 short, pause, and repeat. This is an especially handy and harmless device to give kids that are along for a hike, along with, if you get separated, stop walking and blow the whistle lots, and we'll come to you. If you get stuck in your car in the snow, stay with your vehicle. Hypothermia makes you delirious, and you can wander the wrong direction and freeze to death. Your vehicle is also a lot easier to locate than you are. When I was younger and traveled a lot, a friend from Minnesota told me to keep an unopened bottle of water, a blanket, matches, candle and a rope in the car during the winter months. A wax candle will provide enough heat to keep the car warm enough to survive with the blanket around you. Tie the rope to the car if you get out to relieve yourself, that way you can find your way back by following the rope. If snowing, water, well that is obvious. Canadian here, I do the same. My sleeping bag lives in my trunk during winter. Also super convenient if you need to crash on a couch after a party. The other thing is to make sure the car exhaust is clear. If you keep the car running you may very well kill yourself by carbon monoxide otherwise. Also, if there is an empty bottle you can pee in it and use it for warmth for a while. Same with the sleeping bag. I also keep my small single burner camp stove in my camp pot with 2 gas canisters and some of those freeze-dried meals in a bag. I've heard too many stories about people living off of hot sauce packets and whatnot when trapped with their car. When they find me, I'll be sleeping off a nice beef stroganoff. Edit. I've gotten a few comments on this, so I figured I'd put this up. Do not cook with gas inside a closed space. If you're going to do this, crack a window for ventilation. Here's one you can use every day. Know your exits. People will naturally want to go out the way they came in, because it's the only exit they remember, especially at places like concert venues. You don't have to be paranoid, just take a quick glance and make a mental note. In the off chance an emergency happens, it could mean the difference between a swift and safe exit or being trampled in a panicking mass of people. Edit. I'm having a lot of fun reading all the replies that came in overnight. You guys are awesome. While I'm here I'll add that exits and employee areas are fair game too. Grew up not too far from where the station nightclub fire happened. It was brutal. There is a video where you can see just how fast the fire spread, and at the end you can see bodies piled up around the front door, while there were multiple other doors that were free and clear that people could have escaped out of. After that day every parent/teacher/authority figure drilled into every own's head to know multiple exits and always have a quick path to them. If you somehow are in a situation where you feel like you could drown and have no energy to go on, turn on your back and do the backstroke. Saved my life while at the beach last week after getting sucked out by a rip current. Float for your life. I used to teach swimming, and for people who aren't comfortable floating, focus on keeping your belly up like a balloon full of air. If you spread out your arms, it might make things easier. If you can't fully backstroke, because maybe you can't stay on top of the water well enough, or you can't extend your arms like that, swim like a frog by lifting your arms above your head and then pushing them back towards your body. Think jumping jacks. If you are drinking plenty of water but still showing signs of dehydration, headache, fatigue, muscle aches, blurred vision, stumbling around, you may be low on electrolytes. Salty foods can really help with this, but oral rehydration salts such as Pedialyte work even better and should probably be in more people's backpacks. Disclaimer, those symptoms aren't limited to dehydration and can also occur due to heat exhaustion, hypothermia, or altitude sickness. Exposure and dehydration will fuck you up much faster than hunger. Bring spare socks, your feet will rot if you don't. Rule of threes. 3 minutes without air, yeah dead. 3 hours exposed to extreme weather, yeah dead. 3 days without water, yeah dead. 3 weeks without food, yeah dead. Edit. Damn, this blew up. Lot of people splitting hairs. The idea is it's easy to remember, and it keeps your priorities in order. Yeah, some people can live longer than 3 days without water or 3 minutes without air, but you're not really thriving. and your average person may not make it. It's a memory device. Thanks for the awards. Top comment ever. Barrel cactus in the Sonoran Desert are not full of water as is commonly portrayed. Instead they are full of acidic solutions that induce vomiting and diarrhea if consumed. These can easily be fatal for a dehydrated person in the desert. The barrel cactus fruit, by contrast, is one of the most agreeable edibles in the cactus world. They are easy to pick, thornless, and tasty. If you accidentally disturb a beehive or wasp nest and are being swarmed, do not run for water. It seems intuitive that jumping in water will keep the bees off you, but actually they will wait for you to resurface and resume stinging you. Instead, run as fast and as far away as you can. Bees/wasps are territorial and will not easily leave their home range. So once you leave their comfort zone, you're pretty much safe. A mirror is the best way to signal for help. You can use the reflection of the sun directed at a boat or plane like your sibling were to annoy you. The proper way to use a mirror to signal for help is to hold up one hand with a peace sign and position it so that whatever you are trying to signal can be seen between your fingers. Then shine the light from the mirror on your fingers. This guarantees that whatever you are signaling can see the light. Just because you're drinking water doesn't mean you're safe. You need to take in salt as well. I've seen this kick people's asses big time. They drink and drink and drink water, but still overheat/throw up/pass out because they didn't take in any salt or electrolytes. I didn't learn until I started taking holidays to hotter places than normal that I can be quite sensitive to the heat. I thought I was doing a good job looking after myself and drinking plenty of water, but 2 holidays in a row I ended up throwing up from the heat and honestly feeling pretty shitty. After the second time I did a bit of research, how to better look after myself. Again, I was drinking plenty of water, so I wasn't dehydrated, and found out that throwing up from the heat can be a symptom of drinking too much water without replenishing the salts. Started making sure to drink things like Gatorade and adding little sports salts replenishment to my water, and haven't had a problem since. If you are lost in the wilderness, if you have shelter and a source of water, and if you have reason to believe people will be looking for you, you are usually better to stay put than to try to find your way out. Wandering around lost, you expend a lot of energy. You could easily get into a far worse situation, and anyone looking for you will likely start at your last known or expected location, which, if you are lost, you might be wandering farther from. This is not always the case. It depends on if you are injured or not, and the nature of the injuries, on your relative safety, where you are at, how far you are relative to your expected or last known location, how visible you are, and a number of other situational factors. It is often worth a low-risk climb to a better vantage point if possible. People have died a few hundred meters from a road, which could have led them to safety. The ability to weave. Looked at as more of a craft than a survival skill. But my grandma taught me that if you can weave, you can make clothing, shoes, traps, shelter, etc. with nothing more than the vegetation on hand. This was hammered home later when watching that show with naked survival people. The guy harassed the girl because she spent most of the first 2 days weaving, but in the end he had to be taken out because he was sick, yet there she was having crab for dinner. If you hear of a mass shooting currently taking place in a location where a loved one is, like their workplace/school/church/the mall they said they were visiting/etc, you may feel very tempted to call them. Don't. If they're alive, they're hiding and trying to stay invisible. If their phone rings or even vibrates, it will draw attention to them, quite possibly that of the shooter or shooters, and give away their hiding space. Don't try to contact them at all until you are certain that the perpetrator or perpetrators have been stopped. Years ago I got a Verizon Casio phone. The thing was great, waterproof, shockproof, and one of the first phones to have a dedicated flashlight button which turned on the flash. Bad thing, had a 911 mode, which when you dialed 911 would make a loud police siren noise, unable to be turned off, even if you were in silent mode. I found out one day when I hit a deer and had to call 911 because I didn't know what town I was in. Went online and found a story about a lady who was put in danger by the same feature. I returned the phone very quickly, as I live alone, and if someone was to break in while I was in bed and I heard them, they would be able to hear this siren whooping as I called 911 to whisper there was an intruder in my home. Verizon claimed it was mandated by the FCC, but it turns out they misunderstood the requirement. Edit. Wanted to add, unless you hear someone talking to 911 on a phone, don't assume anyone else called, and call yourself, or order someone to. About a year back I was behind a public transit bus that had call 911 sign and a white strobe flashing, and while we were on 4-lane roads with hundreds of people passing, when I passed the bus, there was a similar message in strobe on the front display. I was the only one to call 911 as they called me back to see if I was still in sight of the bus. Not sure what exactly happened, but about 3 to 4 minutes later the police pulled the bus over. It took me over a minute to decide to call 911, but I'm glad I did. I have been planning an expedition to the Arctic. Hailing from a bearless UK, I had to research polar bears and how to prevent being mauled to death. I was quite surprised to find the survival rates of bear attacks differ massively depending on what you use. Guns have the lowest human survival rate, 50% from memory. Bear spray does okay if temperature allows, 60-70%. However, the most effective way to scare off a bear is using a flare gun, 90%. Apparently bears find screaming balls of fire hurtling towards them quite discouraging. Edit. Due to the amount of gun people commenting on the best type of gun to use or not understanding why the gun odds are so unlikely, let me elaborate so I can stop repeating myself in the comments. Polar bears are larger than grizzlies. They are walking walls of muscles and claw. They are built for Arctic stealth and are fast as hell. Not only that, but they are highly intelligent. Chances are, you are now the second most intelligent being in this showdown. By the time you notice the polar bear you have only a few seconds to react. The Arctic can reach temperatures well below -50°C. It's cold. Your movements are already slow and reactions are sluggish. Once you've noticed the bear, you need to take your gloves off, get your gun off your pack, aim, and shoot. Make sure you don't wince from touching the incredibly cold gun with your now bare, pun intended, hands. All the while your adrenaline is skyrocketing because OMG that bear is really close and freaking huge. Polar bears are also used to pain. They often fight to win a mate, usually to the death. Anything other than a kill shot will only piss it off. Not to mention, those few precious seconds only count on a good day. You'll probably have to face high winds and heavy snowfall. This will reduce your visibility, and therefore the bear will be even closer before you notice it, and now you have to take wind into consideration while aiming. So if you think you have the composure to do all that, then sure, bring a gun. I'll stick with a screaming fireball of discouragement.